Yo, 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 yo. Welcome back to another episode of Son of a Preacher Man. As always, I am your host, Soap Man in the house. Yo, check this out, ladies and gentlemen. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. So if I go into a complete coughing and hacking fit, you'll just have to excuse me. Real talk, I do not feel good. But we're not gonna make any excuses. The show must go on, you dig? So we just gonna muscle our way through this, you know what I mean? But let's just jump right off into it, cause I really don't feel good. Anyway, in my last episode, David's son Absalom put David to flight. If you can imagine such a thing, the great David, God's golden boy, tucked tail and put to flight by his own son Absalom. So what happens is Absalom conspires to take the throne. And then he launches a coup. And when he pronounces, well, not just him, when him and the people of Hebron pronounce him king in Hebron, David eventually hears about it and assumes that, he puts it together. This is a coup. He knows if Absalom is proclaiming himself king in Hebron, he's probably coming with part of the Israelite army to Jerusalem, the capital city where David's home is. So David quickly gathers his effects. He gathers his belongings and those closest to him, and he flees in order to protect the city and the citizens. So he goes into hiding in the plains. Meanwhile, Absalom takes up shop as the new sheriff in town in Jerusalem. And David, when he flees, a lot of people try to flee with him. Like, for instance, the priest carrying the Ark of the Covenant try to flee with David. And David tells him, nah, you know what I mean? It's no need to put yourself in danger. This is about me. And there's no need to jeopardize the Ark of the Covenant. Take it back to where it's safe. And instead, he tells the priest to act as his spies. David also sends another man to spy for him, one of his counselors. He sends him back to Jerusalem and tells him to be a counterbalance to the advice of Ahithophel, who was another counselor. I'm gonna break all this down. I know it's confusing, okay? All you need to know at this point is that Absalom, who is David's son, is attempting a coup. He is attempting to usurp his father's throne. He has put his father to flight and has taken up residency in the stronghold in Jerusalem. Now, David's out there in the plains and the wilderness, hiding out in trees and shrubbery. Okay? Did I set the premise okay? David has been put to flight. He's on the run from his own son, Absalom. Okay, I hope I set that premise. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We are in the second book of Samuel. Still, I know you got to be about tired of the second book of Samuel. We almost done though. Maybe 3 more episodes, and then we gon' turn this thing in a totally new direction. Anywho, until then, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Son of a Preacher Man proudly presents the second book of Samuel, part 7. I'm sorry, that's not a 7. Part 12, the coup. Okay, so we're going to start off in 2 Samuel chapter 15, verses 30 through 36. And it says, "And David went up by the ascent of Mount Olivet, and wept as he went up, and had his head covered. And he went barefoot. This is a man who has humbled himself. Okay, hold on. Here come a coughing hack fit. Hold on. Sorry about that, folks. I really don't feel good. Okay, so what we see right now, we open up this episode with a man on the run. He has truly humbled himself. This is a person that's processing and taking in what's going on. It says, and David went up by the ascent of Mount Olivet, and he wept as he went up, and had his head covered, and he went barefoot, and all the people that was with him covered every man his head, and they went up weeping as they went up. And one told David, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And I have this in big bold red print because it's important, and I'm going to explain why on the next slide. It says, and one told David, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And David said, and I have this in big bold red letters, David said, O Lord, I pray thee, turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness. And it came to pass that when David was come to the top of the mount, where he worshipped God, behold, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his coat rent and earth upon his head. Now I want you to witness what just took place, because I bet you missed it. Somebody comes up. David's already doing bad. He's on the run. He's barefoot crying with his head covered. And someone comes up to him and they say, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. What I need you to understand is if things couldn't go worse for David, they just did when that person said that. When it says, and one told David, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom, David's day just got considerably worse when he heard those words. And I'm going to explain why. Not yet, though. What I want to point out to you that just happened. Let me explain something to you before we go on. Now, I don't feel good, so if I'm taking the time to come holler at you about this, it's because it's important. David is just as formidable on his back as he is on his 2 feet. Spoiler alert, this story ends in a victory for David. If you haven't gathered by now, David is like unto Moses. He can't be defeated. You're not going to defeat him unless he wants to be defeated. This story is a victory story for David. It's a tragic victory story, but it's a victory story nonetheless. I want you to peep out what just happened. David gets this really bad news when someone tells him Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And it says, and David said, O Lord, I pray thee, turn the counsel of Ahithophel to foolishness. So when this person comes and tells David this bad news, David immediately prays about it. Look at the next line. It says, and it came to pass that when David was come to the top of the mount where he worshiped God, behold, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his coat rent and earth upon his head. So let me put it all together for you. David's on the run. He's going atop this mountain or this hill. He's crying. As he's on his way up, crying and barefoot with his head covered, one of his friends tells him Ahithophel was among the conspirators with Absalom. David prays to God, okay, about that terrible news. He prays to God about it, and by the time he reaches the top of the hill, it says, behold, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his coat rent and earth upon his head. He's just as distraught as David. For David, this is an ally that meets him at the top of this mount. But what I want you to understand is how much sway David holds with God. Even during David's tribulation and his punishment, he holds sway with God. David prays as he's on the way to the top of a mount. And by the time he reaches the top, God answers that prayer. It says, and it came to pass that when David was come to the top of the mount where he worshiped, behold, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his coat rent and earth upon his head, unto whom David said, if thou passest on with me, then thou shalt be a burden unto me. But if thou return to the city and say unto Absalom, I will be thy servant, O king, as I have been thy father's servant, then mayest thou for me defeat the counsel of Ahithophel. And hast thou not there with thee Zadok and Abiathar the priests? Therefore it shall be that what things soever thou shalt hear of the king's house, thou shalt tell it to Zadok and Abiathar the priests. Behold, they have there with them their two sons, Ahimaaz, Zadok's son, and Jonathan, Abiathar's son. And by them ye shall send unto me everything that ye can hear. I want to explain something. David is just as deadly on his back as he is on his feet. Look what he does when he's in a losing situation. He sends the priests back with the Ark of the Covenant, and he tells them, be my eyes and ears. Then he meets one of his counselors, Hushai the Archite, and he tells Hushai, you're no good to me here on the run. Return back to the capital city and defeat the counsel of Ahithophel for me. Okay? So David sends back 3 men to Jerusalem to act as his spies. Now, the 2 priests that he sent back, each one of those priests has a son. So David has a total of 5 people working on his behalf that we know of. Now to Ahithophel. Who is he and why is he so important? Let me explain something to you. When you're a person like David, you like Tony Stark. And your friends are the Avengers. We gonna do an episode on David's mighty men, because it would be disingenuous to pretend as though David accomplished all of his goals and victories and left the legacy that he left on his own. No, you can't do it all on your own. One of the ways you can tell how blessed David was by the resources that he had at his disposal. He had the best of everything. He had the mightiest warriors. He had the loyalist soldiers. He had extremely talented people around him. He had the best prophets. And he had the best counselors and advisors. That just comes along with being David. When you Tony Stark, you friends with people like Thor and the Hulk. Okay? The thing that made David so special was at the center of all this talent was the genius of David, who knew how to manipulate and maneuver and supply and demand that talent to the utmost effect. So Ahithophel is one of David's counselors. And he's not just any counselor. Ahithophel is the creme de la creme. He's the type of person that you want on your side. Remember Varys from Game of Thrones? They called him the spider. And he always bragged about his little birds, which we find out later were the poor orphan kids in the cities like Flea Bottom around the major citadel, King's Landing. But Varys was instrumental in getting a lot of things done, a lot of things blocked, a lot of plans got thwarted, and even though he met a tragic end, I think Varys is a good example of how influential and instrumental something like a counselor or an advisor can be. Think about Littlefinger and how ambitious he was. And even though he met a similarly tragic end, look at all the mayhem he was able to cause through his back dealings and ill counsel. And really, to be honest, Littlefinger, he got in over his head, but Littlefinger was an extremely talented advisor and was normally right and steps ahead of the game. He got a little bit too big for his britches, thought he was the smartest guy in the room, thought he could out-finesse anybody, and we all know that pride comes before a great downfall. And I think Littlefinger's pride got the best of him. He thought he was the smartest man in the room all the time, 3 steps ahead of the game, and somebody did to him what he had done to so many other people. But my point is, the influence of these two individuals is remarkable. It cannot be denied. Remember that face-off between them two? It was like a battle of wizards. I thought lightning bolts came through their eyes. It was like electrical static between their eyeballs. It was one of the best scenes in Game of Thrones to me. This battle of the wits, as deadly as any sword battle. Anywho, Ahithophel was one of David's counselors. He was David's Varys. He was David's Littlefinger. And I'm sure Ahithophel was strategic in many of David's successes. Okay? Now David hears his top advisor, a very dangerous man, is on the enemy's side. It says Ahithophel is one of the conspirators with Absalom. For David to lose such a powerful asset as his top counselor and advisor in Ahithophel to his son, the usurper, it's debilitating. That's why he prays immediately, and immediately he gets an answer, because he knows. He tells Hushai the Archite, go and be a counterbalance, go and be a counterweight to Ahithophel's advice, because David knows that Ahithophel is dangerous. David knows that Ahithophel is going to advise his son to make this permanent, and he's going to advise him to move to make this permanent quickly. Ahithophel was David's counselor for a long time. He knows Ahithophel. He knows how Ahithophel moves and operates. He knows what Ahithophel is going to counsel his son Absalom to do. And what Ahithophel is going to counsel Absalom to do is to kill the king. You see, David knows Ahithophel is a chess player. It's not checkers, it's chess. David knows Ahithophel is a chess player, and in chess, you kill the king. That's how you end the game. So David knows that Ahithophel is going to advise Absalom to do just that. Strike hard and fast, kill the king. 2 Samuel chapter 16 verses 1 through 4, it reads, "And when David was a little past the top of the hill, behold, Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, met him with a couple of asses saddled, and upon them 200 loaves of bread, and 100 bunches of raisins, and 100 of summer fruits, and a bottle of wine. And the king said unto Ziba, What meanest thou by these? And Ziba said, The asses be for the king's household to ride on, and the bread and summer fruit for the young men to eat, and the wine, that such as be faint in the wilderness may drink. And the king said, And where is thy master's son? And Ziba said unto the king, Behold, he abideth at Jerusalem, for he said, Today shall be, And Ziba said unto the king, Behold, he abideth at Jerusalem, for he said, Today shall the house of Israel restore me the kingdom of my father. Then said the king to Ziba, Behold, thine are all that pertaineth unto Mephibosheth. And Ziba said, I humbly beseech thee that I may find grace in thy sight, my lord, O king. Now let me just break down what just happened, okay? And for that, we gotta go all the way back to my video on Mephibosheth, okay? Do you remember the story of Mephibosheth? Okay? Well, let me remind you. You remember it now? Mephibosheth was Jonathan's son, the grandson of King Saul. I think I got that right. Let's go. Let's see. We here. Let's see. It says, and David said, Is there any that is left of the house of Saul, that I may show kindness for Jonathan's sake? And there was of the house of Saul a servant whose name was Ziba. And when they had called him unto David, the king said unto him, Art thou Ziba? And he said, Thy servant is he. And the king said, Is there not yet any of the house of Saul, that I may show kindness unto him? And Ziba said unto the king, Jonathan hath yet a son, which is lame of his feet. So it's Jonathan's son, Ziba. Remember the servant wench dropped him as a child? Had this boy lame on his feet? Remember the kindness that David showed to Mephibosheth? Remember how Mephibosheth sat at the king's table eating hog maw, buttered grits, fried green tomatoes, and the like? All the fancy trimmings of the time. David showed Mephibosheth love. Now let me show you what happens here. David's on the run from his son. As if that wasn't bad enough, he keeps getting these kites, bits of information floating in. One of them is, hey, your top counselor, Ahithophel, was one of the conspirators. So David prays and he sends another counselor, Hushai the Archite, to contend with the counsel of Ahithophel. He sends Hushai the Archite to be a spy. I'm trying to show you how even when David is getting punished, he still holds sway with God. He's supposed to be getting a whooping. And as soon as he prays, God helps him. So here comes another bad kite. Ziba, this servant of the house of Mephibosheth, he brings David provisions, asses, food, fruits, nuts. Talk about God looking out, man. People are just showing up and hooking David up in his time of need. You cannot tell me God ain't with this man. It's evident. But there's a caveat, because David gets some bad news with this gift. David says, what meanest you about this? And he says, look, the house of Mephibosheth would like to show you kindness. So David says, well, where is the master of thy house? He says, and where is thy master's son? What he means is Mephibosheth's son, or Mephibosheth's grandson, is who he's referring to. And Ziba tells David, oh, he's went back to the capital city because he plans to take the throne. You can't make this stuff up. When Absalom puts David to flight, it's a rat race for the throne. Everybody wants to usurp the throne. People coming out of the woodworks clawing for power. And if you, David, you just really got to be defeated right about now. And I know I'm talking slow. It's because my chest is hurting and I do not feel good. Let's muscle through this. 2 Samuel chapter 16, verses 5 through 10 reads, and when King David came to Bahurim, behold, thence came out a man of the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gera. He came forth and cursed still as he came, and he cast stones at David and at all the people, and all the mighty men were on his right hand, and on his left I have in big bold red print. And thus said Shimei when he cursed, come out, thou bloody man, and thou man of Belial. The Lord hath returned upon thee all the blood of the house of Saul, in whose stead thou hast reigned. And the Lord hath delivered the kingdom into the hand of Absalom thy son. And behold, thou art taken in the mischief, because thou art a bloody man. Then said Abishai the son of Zeruiah unto the king, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over, I pray thee, and take off his head. And the king said, what have I to do with you, ye sons of Zeruiah? So let him curse, because the Lord hath said unto him, curse David. Who shall then say, wherefore hast thou done so? Now I want to explain what I just read. Let's unpack this for clarity's sake. David and his entourage, or his caravan, are on the run. They're down bad. They're at a disadvantage. They're vulnerable. He's weak. But even in his weakened state, he's still one of the most powerful kings, one of the most powerful men on the planet. And he's got some pretty invaluable resources by way of the mighty men on his left and on his right, the Bible says. This is by no means, this is a wounded tiger, but by no means David is compromised. He is a wounded tiger, okay? But he is by no means helpless. This is still probably the most dangerous man on the planet, which is why he's dangerous no matter what position he's in. He's dangerous on his feet. He's dangerous on his back. He's dangerous on his belly. He's dangerous standing on top of his head. He's dangerous because he's a genius. And his genius has given him victory after victory after victory. This by no means is a man that you want to trifle with. And he's got some pretty spectacular soldiers at his disposal within arm's length. So this descendant of Saul, Shimei, he comes out. He sees David and his caravan in their vulnerable state, and he comes out. He takes this opportunity to tell King David exactly how he feels about him and how he's always felt about him. He throws rocks at David, and he throws rocks at the people with David, and he curses David and calls him a bloody man. He says, "You're getting just what you deserve. This is your comeuppance," is what he tells David. Take it like a man. Eat that crow. Eat that crow stew. Eat that crow pie. You're getting just what you deserve for what you've done, for the blood that's on your hand, for how you ravaged, my ancestors' house and usurped the throne from King Saul. So, one of David's men, and we're going to talk about them again in the next episode. One of David's men, and not really just his man, one of his top generals, and also his nephew by his sister Zeruiah, Abishai. And I don't know if you remember Abishai. Abishai and David got history. Abishai is a straight up warrior. Do you hear me? This dude is a straight up gladiator. He is fearless. Did you see how I emphasized that? Abishai is what you would call bout it. He will fight anyone, and he expects to win. He tells David, this dude's a walking dead man. Let me go over to him and manifest. And David says, what am I to do with my nephews? And this isn't the first time he said this. I don't know if you remember back in the day when Saul was chasing after David, and David crept into Saul's camp, and he had his nephew Abishai with him. And Abishai says to David, let me strike him. I won't need a second opportunity. David says, calm down, Abishai. The point I'm trying to make is Abishai is always ready to kill somebody. He does not play. And when it comes to combat, Abishai does not have many peers in that department. I don't know how else I can put it. This is a man you don't want trouble with. David says, what am I to do with my nephews? They're too hard for me. So for that to be coming out of the mouth of King David himself, you know these boys ain't no joke. They're cut from the same cloth as David. They're of the same bloodline. They have that same genius. They may not be a David, or they may not, add up or measure up to David's genius, But where they lack in that genius department, they make up for it in other departments. Abishai is a warrior. He is a warrior amongst warriors. And he's probably the best, if not one of the best soldiers in David's army. And that's saying a lot, because David got some heavy hitters within his ranks. 2 Samuel chapter 16 verses 11 through 20 reads, "And David said to Abishai and to his servants," let me go back, because David says to Abishai, he says, "So let him curse." He says, God told the man to curse, and so he's cursing. God told the man, curse David. And I can go into what David means by that, but I don't think you care, so I won't. But David says, the man is doing what he's doing because God has put us in this predicament. So how can we fault the man? If this was not God's will, it would not be so, is what David's saying to his nephew Abishai. And so he goes on and he says, "And David said to Abishai and to all his servants," and I have this in big bold red print, "Behold, my son, which came forth of my bowels, seeketh my life. How much more now may this Benjamite do?" And I read that wrong. Let me do it again. Let me read this again. It says, "And David said to Abishai and to all his servants, Behold, my son, which came forth of my bowels, seeketh my life. How much more now may this Benjamite do it? Let him alone, and let him curse, for the Lord hath bidden him. It may be that the Lord will look on mine affliction, and that the Lord will requite me good for his cursing this day." And as David and his men went by the way, Shimei went along on the hillside over against him, and cursed as he went, and threw stones at him, and cast dust. And the king and all the people that were with him came weary, and refreshed themselves there. And Absalom and all the people, the men of the men of Israel came to Jerusalem, and Ahithophel with him. And it came to pass, when Hushai the Archite, David's friend, was come unto Absalom, that Hushai said unto Absalom, God save the king. God save the king. And Absalom said to Hushai, Is this thy kindness to thy friend? And Hushai said unto Absalom, Nay, but whom the Lord and this people and all the men of Israel choose, his will I be, and with him will I abide. And again, whom should I serve? Should I not serve in the presence of his son, as I have served in thy father's presence? So will I be in thy presence. Now I gotta explain something, and I didn't explain this very well in my last video. When Absalom usurps the throne, he does it in a real like David way. What I mean is, it's genius the way he does it. The way he does it. It's genius the way Absalom usurps the throne. Because half the people that are helping him to usurp the throne don't even realize they're helping him to usurp the throne. Let me give you an example. Absalom he sends for Ahithophel. I'm not even sure if Ahithophel knew why he was sending for him until he got there. He sends messengers and spies through all the land, doing what messengers and spies do. Planting seeds, exerting their influence, spreading rumors. Absalom should be king. Absalom would make a better king than his father David. Did you see what Absalom did? What do you think about that Absalom? It's propaganda, it's campaigning. No different than today's politicians. Then it says Absalom takes 200 men with him. And it says, the Bible says they are unaware of what he's up to. Then he tells everybody, at an appointed time, proclaim me king in Hebron. Say Absalom is king in Hebron. So half of the people, these 200 dudes, they just doing what the prince told them to do. Absalom is king in Hebron. Yes. So a lot of the people that are helping Absalom usurp the throne, they are doing it, they are unawares to exactly what's going on. Most of these people are really puppets in Absalom's arcade. It's really deep how he does it. I'm not going to get into it. There's a lot of stuff that I don't get into in these stories because I really don't think you care, but I wanted to highlight that. And the reason I want to highlight that is because it brings us to where we are now. So Absalom pulls off this miraculous coup. He's just getting settled in Jerusalem. Ahithophel, this great and wise counselor, is with him. Then Hushai, another counselor, shows up. And Absalom initially is he's suspicious. He's saying, are you coming as a friend? Hushai says, look, this may not be an ideal situation, but I am going to serve the king of Israel, whoever that may be. 2 Samuel chapter 16 verses 21 through 23 says, then said Absalom to Ahithophel, give counsel among you what we shall do. And Ahithophel said unto Absalom, go in unto thy father's concubines, which he hath left to keep the house, and all Israel shall hear that thou art abhorred of thy father. Then shall the hands of all that are with thee be strong. So they spread Absalom a tent upon the top of the house, and Absalom went in unto his father's concubine in the sight of all Israel. And I have this in big, bold, red print. It says, and the counsel of Ahithophel, which he counseled in those days, was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God. So was all the counsel of Ahithophel, both with David and with Absalom. There you have it, folks. I couldn't have said it better myself. Ahithophel was not a prophet, but he may as well been. Because for Ahithophel to give you advice, you may as well have been getting it from God or an oracle of God himself. He was equivalent to an oracle of God. That's how good his advice was. Couldn't have said it better myself. Should have just left it there to begin with. Anyways, we almost done. Bear with me. Ahithophel gives Absalom counsel. Remember in the last episode, it said that David left 10 of his concubines behind to keep the house. Ahithophel tells Absalom, go into your father's concubines. Why does Ahithophel tell him that? Because it'll seal the deal. Ahithophel doesn't just tell Absalom to sleep with his father's concubines. He says to do it in all the sight of Israel. Yeah. I don't know if you remember this part. I'm going to get to this. Hold on. So, Ahithophel says, sleep with your father's concubines. And do it in the sight of everybody, because then they will know that the deal is sealed. Then they will know that you can't go any lower than that. He says, sleep with your father concubines, because that's the point of no return. There's no coming back from that. And do it in all the sight of Israel, he says. And what do you think happens? Now, I might get in trouble for this slide from YouTube. Good thing it's not a very good slide. But that's exactly what Ahithophel does. He spreads a tent on the top of the house and sleeps with his father's concubines where all can see. I have to go back a little bit. We almost done. Bear with me. I want you to notice something. Back when God cursed David, he sent the prophet Nathan to curse David. And I want to show you, I want to remind you of what Nathan said to David. Okay? Like, David could barely stand in Nathan's presence. Okay, so here we are. Here we are. Hold on, bear with me. I know, I'm so sorry. Look, I'm looking at stuff. I'm lying. I'm the curse. Oh, okay. Okay, so okay, I'm at the place. Okay, so when Nathan curses David, listen to what he said. He says, I will take thy wives before thine eyes and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of the sun, for thou didst it secretly. But I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. So that was God's curse against David. In today's episode, we see God's curse manifest. What I mean is we see it come to life when Absalom spreads his tent upon the top of the house and sleeps with all his father's concubines. And as Ahithophel suggested, there is no coming back from that. He says, then will you be utterly abhorred by your father. This will be the point of no return. There's no coming back from this. This is the deal sealer. 2 Samuel chapter 17 verses 1 through 8 reads, Moreover, Ahithophel said unto Absalom, Let me now choose out 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue after David this night, and I will come upon him while he is weary and weak-handed. And I will make him afraid, and all the people that are with him shall flee, and I will smite the king only, and I will bring back all the people unto thee. The man whom thou seekest is as if all return. So all the people shall be in peace. And the saying pleased Absalom well, and all the elders of Israel So it pleased Absalom and all the elders of Israel. Then said Absalom, Call now Hushai the Archite also, and let us hear likewise what he saith. And when Hushai was come to Absalom, Absalom spoke unto him, saying, Ahithophel hath spoken after this manner. Shall we do after his saying? If not, speak thou. And Hushai said unto Absalom, The counsel of Ahithophel hath given, and I have in big bold red print. And Hushai said unto Absalom, The counsel that Ahithophel hath given is not good at this time. For said Hushai, Thou knowest thy father and his men, and they be mighty men, and they be chafed in their minds, as a bear robbed of her whelps in the field. And thy father is a man of war, and will not lodge with the people. 2 Samuel chapter 17 verses 9 through 14 reads, Behold, he is hid now in some pit or in some other place, and it will come to pass, when some of them be overthrown at the first, that whosoever hear it will say, There is a slaughter among the people that follow Absalom. And he also that is valiant, whose heart is as the heart of a lion, shall utterly melt. For all Israel knoweth that thy father is a mighty man, and they which be with him are valiant men. Therefore I counsel that all Israel be generally gathered unto thee, from Dan even to Beersheba, as the sand that is by the sea for multitude, and that thou go to battle in thine own person. So shall we come upon him in some place where he shall be found, and we will light upon him as dew falleth on the ground. And of him and of all the men that are with him there shall not be left so much as one. Moreover, if he be gotten into a city, then shall all Israel bring ropes to that city, and we shall draw it into the river, until there be not one small stone found there. And I have this in big, red, bold print. And Absalom and all the men of Israel said, the counsel of Hushai the Archite is better than the counsel of Ahithophel. For the Lord had appointed to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel, to the intent that the Lord might bring evil upon Absalom. Folks, we could do a whole episode on those two sentences alone, but I know you don't care. So, let me unpack for clarity's sake. Ahithophel tells Absalom to strike while the iron is hot. He says, give me 12,000 men. I will personally kill the king and just the king. I'll bring the rest of the people back to you in peace. That way you will not be fighting a civil war. That is Ahithophel's wise counsel to Absalom. And it's the right counsel. And had Absalom listened to Ahithophel, he would have been king. He would have successfully defeated his father David. But David, he's already countered Ahithophel. That's what I'm saying. David's not even there. And he's already monkey wrenched Ahithophel's counsel with his spy Hushai. And so Ahithophel gives Absalom the correct counsel. He says, kill the king. This is chess, not checkers. Kill the king. But what I want you to understand is Ahithophel leaves after he gives counsel. So when Hushai comes to Absalom, Hushai says, Absalom says, let's see what Hushai has to say. And they go get Hushai. Ahithophel is left. So Hushai comes in and he says, look at how he words it. He doesn't say Ahithophel's counsel is not good counsel. He says it's not the right counsel at this time. He says, you know your father and his men are mighty and valiant men. They're legendary. And they're pissed off right now. They're not about to go out without a fight. He says, what do you think your father is new to this? You don't remember how victorious your father was in all the battles he was victorious in? You think he's just laying around with the people? He says, please, this is a man of renown, a legendary warrior, a legendary king. He's not going to be that easy to take out. Don't be fooled. He says, no, muster your forces, strengthen your resources, strengthen your support base, and let's all go out and find this king and destroy him together with the backing of the people. And everyone says Hushai's counsel was better than Ahithophel. So one thing you got to understand about Absalom, he's David's son, but he's no David. Absalom ain't seen no battles. Absalom ain't never seen war. He's a spoiled, handsome kid. And I'm pretty sure he's sharp. And, not to say he's no punk, but he's no David who who started at the bottom, now we here? His entire life, he's reaped the benefits of who his father was. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on Absalom. Dude, up until this point, I was team Absalom. The way he defended his sister was admirable. Anyway, we gonna end this in 2 Samuel chapter 17, verses 15 through 20, and it reads, Then said Hushai unto Zadok and Abiathar the priests, Thus and thus did Ahithophel counsel Absalom and the elders of Israel, and thus have I counseled. Now therefore send quickly, and tell David, saying, Lodge not this night in the plains of the wilderness, but speedily pass over, lest the king be swallowed up, and all the people that are with him. Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz stayed in En-Rogel, for they might not be seen to come into the city. And a wench went and told them, and they went and told King David. Nevertheless, a lad saw them and told Absalom. But they went both of them away quickly, and came to a man's house in Bahurim, which had a well in his court, whither they went down. And the woman took and spread a covering over the well's mouth, and spread ground corn thereon. And the thing was not known. And when Absalom's servants came to the woman's house, they said, Where is Ahimaaz and Jonathan? And the woman said unto them, They be gone over the brook of water. When they had sought and could not find them, they returned to Jerusalem. So what happens basically in a nutshell, they get word to David through the priest's sons, Zadok and Abiathar. The priests, Zadok and Abiathar, send their sons, their prospective sons, Jonathan and what's his name? And Ahimaaz. Jonathan and Ahimaaz. What up? Ahimaaz. Sorry. Anyway, they have to do some ducking and hiding. They hide in the well, you know what I mean? They narrowly escape Absalom's goons, but they eventually get the message to David. And so David flees from the position he's in. He crosses a brook, a stream, or a river. He goes to the other side. So eludes and evades Absalom. It says 2 Samuel chapter 17, verses 21 through 26 reads, And it came to pass, after they were departed, that they came up out of the well, and went and told King David, and said unto David, Arise and pass quickly over the water, for thus hath Ahithophel counseled against you. And David arose, and all the people that were with him, and they passed over Jordan. By the morning light there lacked not one of them that was not gone over Jordan. And when, and I have this in big bold red print, it says, And when Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his ass and arose, and got him home to his house, to his city, and put his household in order, and hanged himself, and died, and was buried in the sepulchre of his father. Then David came to Mahanaim, and Absalom passed over Jordan, he and all the men of Israel with him. And Absalom made Amasa captain of the host instead of Joab, which Amasa was a man's son, whose name was Ithra, an Israelite, that went in to Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, sister to Zeruiah, Joab's mother. So Israel and Absalom pitched in the land of Gilead. Let's unpack this for clarity's sake. When Ahithophel gets word that his counsel is not followed, he's wise and prudent enough to know that that is a blunder that Absalom will not recover from. See, Ahithophel is no dummy. He sees the intricate plot. He knows that Absalom just missed an opportunity that's going to cost a lot of people their lives. Heads are going to roll. You don't go up against the king and fail. It's do or die. So Ahithophel, when he hears that his solid counsel, probably in his mind, the end-all be-all, was not followed, he kills himself because he knows what's to come. He says to himself, Absalom, fool! He knows the jig is up. In the Game of Thrones, remember what Cersei says? In the Game of Thrones, you either win or you die. And Ahithophel knows that Absalom has lost. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the part of this episode where I thank you for joining me for Son of a Preacher Man. If you have any questions, comments, likes, dislikes, leave them in the comments section. If you got any questions or topics you want me to cover, leave them in the comments section. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Same soap channel. Soap Man is out.